Full story. Am I the a-hole for calling my wife fat? 34M work in a physically demanding field. Myself and my co-workers are all fit people without a lot of body type variety. My wife, Carol, 32F, is fat. The thing is, she's always been fat. The whole time I've known her. We dated when she was fat. We got married when she was fat. She knows she's fat. She's fat and she's beautiful. I'm happy if she loses weight, and I'm happy if she stays where she is. I think she's the most beautiful woman in the world as is. One of my co-workers, Julia, 28F, started complaining that she's too fat to be loved and that fat people don't get to be loved. Julia isn't fat. She's maybe 120 pounds. She works out 5 times a week and barely ever eats. I told her that wasn't true and that my wife was fat. She got really red in the face and started telling me I wasn't allowed to call my wife fat, that I was insulting her, and that my wife was beautiful and curvy. Carol doesn't like being called curvy. She thinks it's a label used to avoid calling people fat because it's a dirty word to most people. I told Julia as much. Julia started threatening to tell my wife I called her fat. She pulled up her Instagram and told me she was messaging Carol that I was being mean. I beat her to the punch and called my wife, put her on speaker and asked if she was curvy or fat. Carol laughed and said, "I hate that curvy shish, fat and beautiful, baby." I thanked her, told her I loved her, and hung up. As soon as I hit end, Julia went mental. She started screaming that I was abusing my wife. When I asked how, she said I was clearly brainwashing her into accepting the term fat to try to keep her complacent and from getting away from me. That no woman in her right mind could be okay with their husband calling them fat. I showed her a picture of my wife in a shirt that had BBW on it. She bought it for herself, BTW. She stormed off and hasn't spoken to me since. Now, I just walked in today to an email from HR requesting a meeting with me. I don't think it's a big deal. I have my wife's blog for fat positivity, the shirt, and can easily call her for proof. But now, things are frigid at work, and Julia constantly gives me dirty looks when we're in the same room. She ignores me otherwise, so I'm just over here, scratching my head. AITA for calling my wife fat. Update. So, I met with HR at 4 hours today. Apparently, multiple co-workers who had overheard the conversation stopped by HR through the day to give their side way in. I wasn't in trouble. They just wanted my side of things. It checked out with what everyone else had said too. I still don't know which of my crew stopped by, but I owe them my life. I offered to show my wife's blog, and our rep, who's a really nice girl, told me that if it didn't affect my work, it was irrelevant. The story had been corroborated enough by others. HR reiterated a lot of what y'all said. Even though Julia initiated the conversation, I shouldn't have jumped in. It was less of a scolding and more of a request to keep my nose out of other people's business. I'm sad because I thought Julia and I were friends. We talked about our mental health struggles, the hardships of the field we're in, and heavy things like that. Won't be having those conversations any further. Julia and I will no longer be paired on teams for patient care. I was told my part in the investigation was done, and they thanked me for my time, so I think I'm going to be okay. After the HR meeting, I couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and sadness. I thought Julia and I had a good rapport. We talked about personal stuff, like our struggles with mental health and the stresses of our job. But this whole incident had made me realize how quickly things could change. Later that evening, I told Carol about the HR meeting and Julia's reaction. Carol, always the level-headed one, suggested I focus on maintaining a professional relationship with Julia from now on and to avoid personal conversations at work. She reminded me that not everyone understands or accepts our dynamic, and that's okay. A couple of weeks passed, and things seemed to be getting back to normal. I was no longer paired with Julia, and work was less tense. One day, out of the blue, Julia approached me during lunch break. She looked different, more subdued. She asked if we could talk. I agreed, cautiously optimistic that she might want to clear the air. Julia apologized for her outburst and explained that she had been dealing with her own insecurities. She had been struggling with body image issues, despite being so fit. She confessed that she envied Carol's confidence and the love we shared. Her reaction was more about her own struggles than about us. I felt a pang of sympathy for Julia. I knew what it was like to deal with insecurities, albeit in a different context. We talked for a while, and by the end of the conversation, I felt like we had reached a new understanding. We weren't best friends, but there was a mutual respect. Just when I thought things were settling down, another curveball hit. One evening, while Carol and I were having dinner, she received a message from an unknown number. It was a screenshot of an online forum where someone was discussing our relationship. The poster claimed to know us and was spewing all kinds of lies about our personal life. The post painted me as a controlling husband who forced Carol to stay overweight to keep her from leaving me. It was absurd and hurtful. Carol and I were both furious. We suspected it might be someone from work, but we had no proof. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Carol posted a response on her blog, addressing the rumors and reaffirming our love and respect for each other. The outpouring of support from her followers was overwhelming, and it helped us cope with the negativity. A few days later, Julia came to me looking distressed. She admitted that she had been the one to post the lies about us. She said she was drunk and angry the night she wrote it, not realizing the damage it would cause. She apologized profusely, saying she never meant for it to go so far. I was livid, but also conflicted. Julia's actions had caused a lot of pain, but her apology seemed genuine. Carol and I talked it over and decided to forgive her, but also made it clear that we couldn't trust her anymore. The incident had taken its toll on us, but it also made us stronger. Carol's blog continued to grow, reaching more people and spreading positivity. Our relationship was tested, but it proved to be unbreakable. We learned to be more cautious about who we trusted, but we also grew closer as a result. At work, I maintained a professional distance from Julia. We were civil, but the friendship was over. I focused on my job and supporting Carol. We started attending more events related to body positivity, and I became more involved in her advocacy work. Just when we thought we had seen it all, life threw another surprise our way. Carol found out she was pregnant. We were overjoyed, but also anxious about how her pregnancy would be received by the body positivity community and our families. The news spread quickly, and we were met with a mix of reactions. Most people were supportive, but a few made insensitive comments about Carol's weight and the baby's health. We brushed them off and focused on preparing for our new arrival. As Carol's pregnancy progressed, she continued to share her journey on her blog, inspiring even more people. Her confidence and strength shone through, and I couldn't have been prouder. When our baby girl was born, it was the happiest day of our lives. Holding her in my arms, I knew that everything we had gone through had led us to this moment. Carol was a natural mother, and I was in awe of her strength and love. Our happiness was short-lived when, a few weeks after our daughter's birth, I was called into another meeting with HR. Julia had made another complaint, this time about a supposed hostile work environment. She claimed that my wife's blog and our personal story were being used to make her feel insecure and targeted. HR was more serious this time. They suggested that my wife's blog, while positive, was being perceived as an indirect attack on Julia. They asked if Carol could tone down her posts or make them less personal. I was furious. Carol's blog was her outlet and a source of inspiration for many. Asking her to censor herself because of one person's insecurities felt wrong. I explained this to HR, but they remained firm. The workplace needed to be a neutral, safe space for everyone. Feeling cornered, I decided to take a stand. I consulted a lawyer to understand our rights and protect Carol's freedom of expression. The lawyer advised us to document everything and to prepare for a potential legal battle if necessary. The tension at work escalated. Julia's behavior became erratic. She alternated between avoiding me and making passive-aggressive comments. Meanwhile, Carol continued to blog, but with an added layer of defiance. She refused to let anyone silence her. Our lawyer helped us draft a formal response to HR, stating that any attempt to control Carol's blog would be met with legal action. We emphasized that her blog was her personal space and had no direct connection to my workplace. HR backed down, but the atmosphere at work remained tense. I was labeled as a troublemaker by some, while others supported me quietly. It was a tough period, but it made me more determined to support Carol and her mission. The turning point came when Julia's own actions caught up with her. She had been spreading rumors about other colleagues as well, trying to undermine anyone she saw as a threat. One of the victims of her gossip decided to take action and reported her to HR with concrete evidence. Julia was called into a disciplinary meeting and eventually faced severe consequences for her behavior. She was given a warning and placed on probation. The power she had wielded over the office dynamics diminished significantly. With Julia's influence waning, the workplace slowly began to improve. People were more open and supportive, and the atmosphere became more inclusive. My relationship with my co-workers started to mend as they saw the positive changes in the environment. Months later, Julia approached me again, this time with a genuine desire to make amends. She admitted that her actions had been driven by deep-seated insecurities and a lack of self-worth. Years passed, and our lives settled into a comfortable rhythm. them. Carol's advocacy work grew, and she became a speaker at various events. I continued to support her, balancing my demanding job with our family life. Our daughter, now a confident and vibrant young girl, often accompanied Carol to her events. She inherited her mother's strength and passion for self-love and acceptance. One day, as I watched Carol and our daughter on stage at a body positivity event, I felt a deep sense of pride and fulfillment. We had faced numerous challenges, but each one had made us stronger and brought us closer together. Our journey was far from over, but we were ready for whatever came next. We knew we could handle anything life threw our way. As our daughter grew older, she continued to embrace the values we had instilled in her. She became an advocate for self-love and body positivity, much like her mother. She started her own blog and social media presence. Carol and I watched with pride as our daughter carried forward the legacy we had built.